What events occurred throughout the Revolutionary War? Tired of being treated like a slave by the British, Patrick Henry said to the Virginia House of Burgesses to sway their vote in delivering troops to the Revolutionary War. Gentlemen may cry, peace, peace, but there is no peace. Is life so dear or peace so sweet as to be purchased at the price of chains and slavery? Forbid it, Almighty God. I know not what course others may take, but as for me, give me liberty or give me death. Britain's General Gage sent out British soldiers to Lexington, where they would capture colonial leaders Sam Adams and John Hancock, then Concord, where they would seize the gunpowder. In Lexington, both sides eyed each other warily, not knowing what to expect. Suddenly, a bullet buzzed through the morning air. One of the first steps of the new Congress was to adopt the army gathered about Boston, calling it the Continental Army to distinguish it from that of England, which they called the Ministerial Army. It then became necessary to give that body a leader, a commander-in-chief to handle it. Opinions varied, and George Washington was chosen. Americans who were supposed to entrench themselves at Bunker Hill instead went to Breed's Hill due to misunderstood orders. The British rushed the hill in 3 waves, the third being hand-to-hand fighting as the Americans were running low on ammo. British eventually took the hill, but at a great cost. The king felt due to this, the uprising, it must be treated as a foreign war. Accordingly, he issued a proclamation of rebellion.
The British General Howe orders Cornwallis to conduct a counterattack to Washington's capture of Trenton. 6,000 British troops faced 5,200 colonial troops. Under the command of General Washington, his troops moved behind the British camp at night. The next day, other American troops and their generals flanked the British army, and the Americans were able to defeat the British. In the First Battle of Saratoga, the Battle of Freeman's Farm, the British were led by General Burgoyne. The British ran into a waiting American army led by General Gates. The Americans defeated the British easily. In the Second Battle of Saratoga, the Battle of Bemis Heights, the British put up a bigger fight, but they were still defeated by American General Arnold's troops. The British were better prepared when General Howe made his way into Philadelphia. With an army of Hessians to help the British, the American armies were outnumbered and Washington was forced to retreat after a great amount of casualties. Because the British were occupying in Philadelphia, Washington and his troops settled in the winter quarters of Valley Forge. The conditions were terrible. The soldiers had little to keep them warm and barely any food. Many soldiers died from cold or sickness or hunger, and they deserted because they had no hope. But the conditions became better and the army became stronger, better fighters. After the Battle of Saratoga, the French wanted to join an alliance with the Americans. The French agreed on a treaty of amity and commerce with the Americans, and an alliance treaty was made. American Brigadier General Howe had few troops to defend Savannah, North Carolina, so the British forced an American retreat to South Carolina.
Great Britain decided it was time to focus their attention on the southern colonies. Perhaps there they would find more loyalists or American colonists who were sympathetic to the British. The British troop, led by General Clinton, surrounded the area known as Charleston. A drawn-out bombardment of the city ensued. Men from both sides were killed. Eventually, the American commander, General Lincoln, was forced to surrender himself and his ragged army as prisoners of war. Over 4,600 Patriot soldiers were taken captive, making this the most severe loss up to that point in the war. With British control being strengthened in the South, Patriot General Horatio Gates decided an attempt to take possession of Camden, South Carolina, would be beneficial to Patriot causes. Unfortunately, his men were largely unprepared for battle, many of them having very little experience. On the other hand, British troops there were trained and prepared. Over the course of battle, all of General Gates' troops fled, suffering great losses. Gates was able to escape on horseback. This proved to be another success for the Tories. Benedict Arnold, a general in the Patriot Army, never felt he received due credit for his contributions in the war. He likely felt underappreciated and slighted by his fellow patriots. He made a deal with the Tories to give up Patriot-controlled West Point in exchange for money and a position as Major General in the British Army. Unfortunately for Arnold, his plot was discovered, and he was forced to flee. The British took Arnold in, but never fully trusted him. In American history, his name would come to be synonymous with the word traitor.
In this battle, the American forces were commanded by General Greene, and the British forces were commanded by General Cornwallis. This battle took place at Guilford Courthouse. The battle was an American win, however, the British forces won a tactical victory, but they had too many losses, so it was an American victory. This battle took place on April 25, 1781, on Hopkirk's Hill. General Greene set his men on Hopkirk's Hill as a staging point for attack on Camden. The British forces, however, attacked the Americans' position and caused some soldiers to break ranks and run. The British were commanded by Lord Rawdon. This battle was also a British tactical victory, but Lord Rawdon was forced to withdraw. In the Battle of Eutaw Springs, General Greene was still commanding the Americans. At Eutaw Springs, the Americans attacked the British, and the British fought back and repulsed the Americans. The British were too weak, however, to continue fighting, though, and so they withdrew. The Articles of Confederation state that there is a union between the states. The states will retain every right not given to the central government. The Articles of Confederation took 4 years to be approved by the states. In May of 1781, General Washington, with the help of the French, were able to surround the British Army, commanded by General Cornwallis, at a naval base in Yorktown, Virginia. This caused the surrender of the British, and this ended the Revolutionary War. The Treaty of Paris was signed in Paris by representatives of King George III of Great Britain.
What events occurred throughout the Revolutionary War? Tired of being treated like a slave by the British, Patrick Henry said to the Virginia House of Burgesses to sway their vote in delivering troops to the Revolutionary War.